I'm here to say a few things about my experience with the Hypershell. I have the Pro X, and let me say, first of all, that I am in no way affiliated with the Hypershell folks. I spent my own money to obtain this gadget, and I was not a Kickstarter backer. I remember the campaign showing up as an option, and I elected not to back it. I kind of wish I did, because I see backers get a longer warranty span and maybe a couple of other perks. Anyway, those are not an option for me since I didn't back them. I am here to say a few things about what prompted me to obtain this device and my initial experience with it. I am not an outdoors person. I'm not a big hiker. I do like the outdoors, but the outdoors doesn't like me. In October of 2013, I was involved in a motor vehicle accident, a collision in which I was operating a motorcycle and I was struck by a Jeep driver who was turning left. That was a complete nightmare, and the driver of that vehicle is now serving a life sentence behind bars on an unrelated topic. Suffice it to say, it was such a traumatic event that I was having difficulty even getting behind the wheel again after that event. I was laid up in the hospital for a number of days, during which time I was an amputation candidate. The collision shattered every bone in my leg. The joints themselves were spared, so my hip, knee, and ankle were mostly intact and didn't, I feel, suffer a lot of the problems that some people have. You have to remember that every injury and every case is unique, and my situation may or may not have significance for you. You'll have to determine that on your own. I'm just here to relate my experience. So I have this crushed left leg with a great deal of tissue and nerve trauma. Some of my muscle tissue had to be excised, and contrary to some belief, that stuff doesn't grow back. In my case, an entire muscle had to be removed. It's either the vastus lateralis or my rectus femoris. They are part of the quadriceps group of muscles in the upper leg. So I have greatly impaired strength in my upper leg. Additionally, the leg is somewhat shorter than the other one, and I remedy this situation by wearing a lift in one shoe. What the Hypershell does for me is it provides the lift that I am lacking in that leg due to the extreme loss of muscle tissue. There was muscle tissue loss, there was a great deal of nerve damage. The term degloved was used numerous times by the surgical team. For that matter, the surgical team that tended to me doesn't really understand how I am able to walk with the severity of my injuries. So what I do is I adjust the bias for these motors using the app over to the left. I've been using them at about 40% over to the left, and it seems to work for me. My mileage estimates are in the 5-mile range, mainly because of the fact that I tend to run the motors at 70% power. 70 to 95% power is where I run them. I use 95% power on a hike. I did a 2-mile hike most recently, and the first mile I did at 70%, and then when we reached the halfway point to turn around and come back, I switched up to 95% because I was feeling a lot of fatigue. It was uneven ground, so some incline, some decline. What I find happening sometimes, and I don't know if this is a glitch or if it's operator error, if it's maybe my mistake in the way that I've configured the device, but from time to time I feel like my knees are being pulled together as if by a magnet. I don't know if I feel like they're being pulled together or pushed apart, but they do seem to bind up from time to time. And it seems to be when transitioning from a slight incline or decline to level. I'm not sure which, but it seems to be that the algorithms at work are not reading the mode they need to be in and are getting a little bit confused. I am running the motion engine, I believe it's what it's called. So maybe I need to disengage that and run it in a more simplistic mode to eliminate some of the confusion that the sensors are getting from me. I don't know. And a couple of times I've had the indicator lights turn solid amber, or maybe a pulsing amber, and I'm not sure what that indicates. A simple tap on the button seems to bring it back online, and I'm not sure what that means. Now, keep in mind that the documentation says in no uncertain terms that this is not a medical device, and that if you have physical impairments or a medical condition that impairs your movement, that you should not be using it. But it does seem like there's a whole group of people looking for answers to their problems of mobility, myself among them. So I'm not surprised that there are others out there trying to adjust their problems in this way, using this minimalist exoskeleton. For the most part, I have to say it's working well for me, especially when going upstairs. I just have one flight of stairs at my job, and I do not have to use it every day. I typically elect to use it to visit the second floor, but I do not have to. But when I do, and I have the exoskeleton, or since I've had the exoskeleton, the Hypershell, the Pro X, it has been a breeze going up the stairs. I don't know if the motors help with the descent because of my nerve damage. I'm not sure of some of the sensations I'm getting, so I may not be able to address some of the sensations that the motors give as feedback. I do feel the haptic feedback from time to time, but somebody asked about resistance on a descent. I cannot be sure that's the case, particularly because I've been using the device mainly in eco mode. I've only engaged hyper mode once, and it has quite a bit of power, but since I'm unable to run, or I haven't run in over a decade, I don't feel like I should be using it just yet. Maybe on a treadmill with handrails. But for the most part, it's a great assist for me because the fatigue that comes from having to work so hard to lift my left leg, especially when I'm at home and outside in the yard on slightly uneven ground, it does cause some fatigue. And the physical fatigue leads to mental fatigue, as you can imagine. Many of you are well aware of this fact. And when the physical fatigue begins to lift, so does that mental fatigue. And I have to say, it's a great boost. For me, it even has some residual effects. A day or two afterwards, even if I'm not wearing the exoskeleton, I feel like I've got some benefit from it. I've got some muscle memory. My vestigial muscles sort of remember how to lift, or to what degree the lift needs to be at for me to move. And so for me, it's a net benefit to have this device. Even though the finish is already wearing out in a couple of spots, there seems to be some points of wear where the finish is starting to buff itself off, or my clothing is rubbing against it. It does not seem to affect the performance, just the aesthetics. I know some people have complained about the metal, or the plastic buckles that are being used. Perhaps those can be replaced with something stronger, maybe a different kind of composite could be used. Who knows? I've heard that the manufacturers are good at dealing with issues as they arise. So if they take care of the customers after the sale, that's a big plus in my book, and may lead to me, and it may even lead to me buying a second unit from them. I would like to have 2 units, possibly their top of the line one, or possibly one made by somebody else. I know we've all gushed at the sight of the Honda exoskeleton, which at this time is not yet available. When it does come available, it probably would be at a much higher price point. Anyhow, that's what I have to say about that. I hope this has answered some questions that people have about my experience with the Hypershell Pro X. I did take delivery a couple weeks ago, so I believe I'm done with my trial period. And if I seek to return it, I'll have to pay a restocking fee, I think. But I think I'm going to keep it because it helps more than anything. I definitely know when I don't have it available, and if it were to go away, I would probably sorely miss it. Thanks for watching.